So as we move into zone 5, this one sucks. This is, just under just over 100% of your lactate threshold. This will not last very long. You are on the clock for seconds, maybe up to as long as a minute to 2 minutes, depending on how fit you are and how good your body is at doing this. If you were able to do this for minutes at a time, you'd be crazy athletic or a crazy athlete with a crazy cardiorespiratory system. This takes time. And where does this show up for people? This is going to show up at in your sprint work, where it gets up and then you take time to recover to come back down so that you could do your sprint again. This is going to be your 40-yard dash. This is going to be your 15-yard sprint, right? Where you are working up, and when you're done, your heart rate's up because you placed that demand on your body at a level that it was not able to regenerate that fuel enough to be able to continue to do it. Form is broken down. The form is broken down. Your sprint is over, right? You should be done, right? Most people can do, basically about 15 yards is what most people can handle, right? Olympic level athletes obviously can do that for a much longer period of time. But when you're looking at the realities, like what are we really doing there in terms of a sprint and all out max effort? 100 meters is as far as it goes. They do a 400 meter, right, as well, which is wild. If you've ever actually sprinted 400 meters, you're probably collapsing at the end. You need to have a high level of cardiovascular capacity in order to do this, mitochondrial density, right? And you need to be recovered enough to do that. So again, we kind of look at what we're doing here. You're going to be spending a very small percentage of your time in zone 5. But again, going back to psychological and emotional things, people think they need to take themselves here frequently in order to get this benefit. And it ends up being overreaching or overworking, right? And then if we're not managing the recovery end, you're never really going to even get the benefit of taking yourself to the pain cave like that if you're not doing the right things, the appropriate things in order to, again, manage the fitness to fatigue model.
Yeah, and I think, we talk about this a lot with our current program that's out, this is one that you really need to manage how you apply this into your training block and into your training week, because this is a really big stressor. And if you're doing this as your stressor, and then you're also like lifting multiple times a week, like your nervous system is going to be super fatigued, because this is something that one of the benefits is it really challenges your nervous system, and it really works on your full body recruitment, and it's very anaerobic and it's very fast twitch, and that's one of the benefits of it. But doing all those things is super, super, super taxing. So when you do that regularly, you really have to be intentional with that. It challenges a lot of the same systems. It's slightly different, but it challenges a lot of the same systems as when you're doing your heavy lifting, right? It uses the phosphocreatine system. That's your very
fast twitch muscle fibers,
right? Your very quick energy source. It's super depletes very quickly, but it's very readily available. So there's a lot of benefits with that. But again, you have to really be aware. Like you said, a lot of these times it's a very coordinated effort. It's a lot of, motor control. It's a lot of neurological demand. So when you're doing this, again, it really should only be, for most people, I would say like once a week, maybe twice a week.
Very planned and intentional.
Very planned, once or twice a week, which again, that's where I think this thing gets misapplied. And then again, people think they're working in zone 5. And maybe they're not. They're only in zone 4.
Yeah.
So again, like how do you? So again, going back to the fuels that you're using there and the energy systems. The point being is these are very short lived. They do not last very long. So when you do work in this zone, you need to be very mindful of taking the appropriate recovery for those energy systems to regenerate, so to speak, so that you can perform that again, either in the same workout, right? If this is how you're applying it, plyometrics, sprinting, max effort work, max effort lifts, tempo work, that kind of thing, or between workouts. Like if I did this on day 1, like on Monday, I'm not likely doing this again on day 2 on Tuesday, right? I'm taking appropriate time in there. So how you organize your training program for like, what are my zone 2 days versus my zone 3, 4 versus my zone 5, that's where, again, I think this stuff gets misapplied. It's just like go all the time. Or to the point made earlier is you're not really working hard enough. Like you're kind of getting into zone 3, and that's about where you're going. And then the return on that investment isn't as great as if you were working, again, more of a zone 2 to 4, 2 and 4 type of work. All right, so integrating this and kind of balancing it all out, just trying to keep this sort of brief, but I think the term to look at is this should be polarizing, right? And that being like the way you organize your training, like it's very specific and it's in one place or the other. We're not trying to always intermix these zones. Now, when we talk about energy systems, you're using all kinds of energy systems at all times. So I don't want to confuse that. I'm just talking about like the focus of the training.
Yeah.
Very specifically, I'm doing zone 2 recovery work today, or aerobic work, if you want to call it that. On this day, I'm very specifically working interval or tempo work. So I'm working into my zone 4. And as the intensity increases, the duration of the time that you spend there will be decreased. So I can spend longer in my aerobic zone, and to get those benefits, I should be spending a shorter period of time in my higher intensity zone 4 or 5. If I had to break this down, like if you just look at kind of the general workout program, so we take that at 100%. Here's all the work that I'm doing in a given week, or workout program or whatever. 70% of and I spend 70% of my time on resistance training, strength-based, power building type of, and muscle building type of work. That leaves me 30% time left over to maybe work on my capacity training. And I think this is like for the general exerciser, right? Again, if you're an Olympic cyclist, or something like that, well, this might change a little bit. But so I have 30% of this time. Now I take that 30% and let's call that 100% of my capacity building time. How am I spending that? 70% of your time should be spent in these lower zones. 30% of your time might be spent in the upper zones. And so if you looked at it that way, then you could kind of divide out your week. Like, how much time am I really spending here to get the fitness, cardiovascular, and health benefits and fitness building benefit that I'm trying to obtain from the work that I'm doing? This is where things get cloudy based on how I feel, what level of intestinal fortitude and grit do I have to be working, during that week, or am I just going through the motions of I got my cardio done today, in air quotes?
Yeah, and we talked. There's a lot of benefits too, of you can there's multiple ways you can do this. Like our current program that we have out, Fit for Action, like that is kind of more concurrent, right? And so you can kind of go back with your conditioning work with all of these training these zones. It can be a little bit more concurrent where you are kind of trying to manage your training volume through the week, where you're trying to work in each zone and have a very specific time, making sure you're not doing too much volume in the more intense zones. But another way to kind of manage this overall stress is kind of doing more of a periodized approach, where you are having, like, maybe you're trying to still keep some baselines up, but you're having more of a focus, and you kind of cycle through that focus of maybe you're trying to build more of that, that big aerobic base. Then you kind of work into that zone 3, zone 4, that threshold. And then you kind of really only for a set amount of time, you are really trying to push that high zone 5. That's another way to kind of, if you even think of like the training percentage of the entire year, maybe a large percent of that entire year, that 70% of the time is in the lower intensities, but then that, 30% remaining is in the other half, the higher intensities. So that can be throughout your training week or throughout your training blocks.
Yeah. So you're talking about periodizing it, right? Whether that's in the weekly program, the monthly program, or the annual program. So yeah, you can ramp this stuff up, dial it back. There can be different focuses for this. If you're doing more of a concurrent style training program where you're trying to consistently work your strength, your power, and your speed or speed and power and your capacity all at the same time. If I'm training more speed, I'm probably doing less zone 5 and 4 work outside of the speed training that I'm doing. If I'm doing primarily strength work, I may be working a little bit more of zone 4, zone 5 once a week or twice a week to make sure that I'm managing the system. And that's where, the nuance and the art and science of programming comes together. So a couple takeaways. First, everybody can do this, right? So all fitness levels should have some type of capacity training going on in their programs. That's going to be dependent on the individual that's doing it, but having some baseline and metrics to be able to manage this stuff, I think, can be important for people. It's not just the weight on the bar, and it's not just about gadgets, right? It's about understanding physiology and your own thresholds, right? So if you understand it just even a little bit at the high level, you can get a tremendous amount more benefit by how you're organizing yourself. And also from the psychological and emotional part, you can step back and kind of correlate like, hey, like today was a zone 2 day for me and I'm good. Like I understand that it's not going to be a huge workout for me and I should feel good about that, right? And if you do this long enough and continue consistently enough, you'll start to recognize those things. So again, it's not all about the gadget, but the heart rate monitor can be very helpful here and very insightful for letting you know where you're at, despite what your emotions might be telling you,